Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind.
This is our kingdom, a kingdom of righteousness. Praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord.
For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather, seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. To the kingdom of Israel!
Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua, Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua, Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua, Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua.
The election, an aristocracy, meaning rule of the best, a group or class considered superior to others, a government by the best men in the state, a governing body composed of the best men in the state, and that's the elect. We're about to have it all right? Psalms 37 and verse 11, and it reads, "But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." That word for peace in the Hebrew is shalom, which goes into safety, soundness in body, meaning we're going to truly have rest, welfare, health, prosperity, peace, quiet, tranquility. So we're going to fully enjoy the planet Earth. We're going to rule and exist within the Lord's creation as we were created to do. I'm ready to rule the world, man. How about you?
Let the golden light of this sunset guide our hearts in peace.
Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
All right, Shalom. So like Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem Rakakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. And what I want to get into, with this lesson, all right, is dealing with the true terror of the earth. All right. And there's no doubt about it, especially those that have, been following this word, have been within this ministry. All right. Who've been, a student, okay, of the wisdom of the scriptures. Well, you come to the conclusion, all right, as we study the scriptures, the Lord has sent down his understanding, and you look out into the planet Earth. Well, all right, the common denominator to the problems of the planet Earth is Esau Edom. Okay, this man is the problem of the earth, and we're going to sound like a broken record. We're going to hear the same thing every day. All right, this nigga is a problem, man. Okay, because it's the truth. Okay, this man is the true terror of the earth, man. This man is anti-life. Okay, there's a nation of people that run the earth that are anti-life, man. Okay, but they present themselves, all right, as these saviors, these humanitarians. They're all about, transcending and, bringing quality to life. And, they're all about, just nonstop, work at trying to improve life and improve the economy and improving, health and improving this. Because everything they do, they always health. And there's no one that's more against health than this nigga, man. Okay, there's no one that's more against the health of the planet Earth than Esau Edom, man. The earth is sick as it's ever been. Okay, and this man is in a position where he can print wealth, okay, out of thin air, and the earth is in the worst predicament that it's ever been in, man. Okay, this nigga is no good for the earth. Okay, that's the bottom line. And see, as we understand who this nigga is Esau. Okay, so how he operates, well, that's because of who he is. Okay, I say the earth doesn't have a democratic problem, a Republican problem, okay, a communism problem. Okay, the earth has an Edomite problem. Okay, because it don't matter what style of government you will put in place. All right, this nigga will find a way, okay, to manipulate it to where it creates intentional poverty, okay, and intentional chaos, man. Okay, witchcraft, Satanism, man. So it's him. He would do the same thing, and he's done the same thing every time. Okay, he did as the Greeks, the Romans, and now he's revived the Greco-Roman Empire. In these last days, he's doing the same thing, man. So this nigga is the problem of the earth, man. And going back, all right, to his origin. Okay, you know how you got those movies, okay, and the villain. Every now and then, there's some movies that go to the origin story of the villain, and then explain, why this nigga is like he is. Okay, well, when you go into Genesis, all right, it's going into the origin story. Now, to go deeper, we know, all right, you can go to the serpent, Cain, okay, but just dealing with, Esau and his origin, okay, we know that these descendants of Edomites, because today are the descendants of Edomites that run the earth, okay, these are the descendants of Esau Edom that run the planet Earth, man. They're in the Holy Land calling themselves us, man. These are the descendants of Esau. Okay, and the Lord addressed the descendants of Esau in Malachi 1:4. Okay, now when you go to Genesis, all right, 27 and 38. Now this is when Esau was weeping for a blessing from Isaac. After Isaac has already blessed Jacob. Okay, so you got this crying ass nigga come. Okay, and he's crying for a blessing as well. Okay, so eventually Isaac did bless him, and it was a temporary blessing. And all right, it spoke to, what was mentioned in the blessing of Esau was spoke to how he would run the earth, man. Okay, now you go to Genesis 27 and 38. It says, and Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. Okay, so Esau was blessed with the same thing Jacob was blessed with, and that's world dominion. Okay, because this verse 39 is world dominion, which Jacob was blessed with this as well. but it will come in two different times, and it will come right one behind the other. That's why Esau was born first. It represented his kingdom being born into the earth. Okay, it represents his kingdom being born into the earth first, man. Okay, going back to what the Renaissance period. You see, so when you go, let me see real quick. See if we can get it first. Okay, well Esau, his birth. You know, you go into the actual birth of Jacob and Esau. With Esau being born first. All right, then there's let me see, it's a shadow of two kingdoms that will come to the earth. You know, the kingdom of Esau and the kingdom of Jacob. Okay. Now, when you go to it, just tap in. All right. When you go into it, let's go and get the Edom online. All right. Because Jacob and Esau were both born. Were both blessed. All right, with world dominion. Okay. And Esau being born first, representing him. All right. Esau being born into his blessing first. All right. His blessing will come first. Okay. Now you go to Renaissance and Edom Online. It's a great period of revival of classical based art and learning in Europe. They began in the 14th century, man. And what did they revive? All right, the Greco-Roman Empire, man. Okay, the New Rome. Okay, it said from French Renaissance des. All right, Latrice, the old French Renaissance, literally rebirth. Okay, the rebirth of what? The Roman Empire, man. Rome, all right, incorporated a lot of Greek culture when you go into it. That's why you hear brothers refer to it as the Greco-Roman Empire, man. Okay, and Rome represents the peak of Esau's power in the earth. You know, so he rebirthed, all right, the spirit of Rome into the earth, man. He had power. Well, he gave power to the beast. Okay, beginning with these elites. It says what? From Renascre, all right, Renascre, we need to grow anew, all right, to be reborn, okay, to rise again, to reappear, to be renewed, okay, to again. You see that? To be born again. You see? So the birth of Jacob and Esau, with Esau coming out first, man, there was this devil coming into his blessing given to him by Isaac first. All right, and it's temporal, okay, because there's no kingdom after Jacob. Okay, there's no rulership after Jacob, man. Okay, this is the last transition of power. You know, the kingdom will go from one people to another. Well, it'll never go to another people again. Okay, and we're gonna get a precept to prove it. All right, then we'll get back to this nigga. Okay, and his origin. Okay, let's go here just to show. You know, just dealing with this topic of Esau's kingdom being born in the earth first, and then the kingdom of Jacob will come after, which is going to be ushered in through Yahweh Shah waging war on the kingdom of Esau. You know, you see, ending his kingdom and establishing the everlasting kingdom of Israel. That's why even when you go here, okay, because what did Jacob held? What? The feet of Esau. Okay, Daniel 2:34. It says, I started 33. It says his legs of iron, which was what? The Roman Empire. Okay, his feet, part of iron and part of clay. And this was the rebirth of the Roman Empire, America, NATO, and the EU. His feet. Okay, and this is where we at in the statue that Daniel, okay, the interpretation of the statue that Daniel broke down. All right, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Okay, so now we're in the feet of the statue that's part iron and part clay. You see? And in this time, all right, when you go into it, well, what happened? Because the feet, remember, Jacob held the feet of Esau. Okay, the end of his kingdom. Okay, so Esau he's at the end of his kingdom, and he represents the bottom half of their statue, because you have, which were the Greeks, the iron legs, which were the Romans, all right, and then his feet, part of iron and part clay. Well, that's the revival of Rome, the Renaissance of Rome, okay, that we see today, made up of America, NATO, and the EU. Okay, It says, thou sawest that a stone, Yahweh Shai, was cut out without hands, which he's coming with a power that's not of this world, which smote the image, because he's coming to wage war in righteousness, man. Okay, and he's going to hit the base of the statue, showing that it's going to be in this time. He wasn't meant for him to come during the Syrian Babylonian Empire. Okay, the Medo-Persian Empire. All right, the Greek Empire. You see, and in the Roman Empire, he came as a sacrifice. Okay, but he didn't come to smite Rome. Now he's coming to smite. Now he's coming to wage war where Herod and them niggas was scrambling for, man. You know, because they thought Yahweh Shai was coming to give them their work back then, but nah, at that time. It had to be a sacrifice first. But this time he's coming, to wage war. Okay, it says upon his feet, it says, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay and break them to pieces. Okay, that's Yahweh Shai breaking up this empire, man, through war. It said, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold broken to pieces. And this is all the heathens and their governments being destroyed, man. Okay, this represents the end of a heathen rulership. All right, forever. Heathens will never be in power again. Okay, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, and no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Okay, and the stone that the image, it says, and the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, which is a great government, and filled the whole earth. Now, when you jump down, okay, because the government of Israel, the house of David, is going to be established in the earth, man. You know, and that influence and that authority of that government is going to fill the whole planet earth, man. Okay, so there is a global, reset that's happening, but it's in righteousness, man. All right, not that BS technocracy. This nigga, that whack ass, tacky, hyped up, technocracy that this nigga trying to establish, man. Okay, Daniel 2:44 says, and in the days of these kings shall the power of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. You see that? And this is the kingdom of Israel. Okay, so this kingdom will never be destroyed. That means that there's no other kingdom after this, man. That's why Jacob came out last, because this is the last dynasty, man. It says, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Okay, and it shall stand forever. This kingdom is going to stand forever, man. Okay, and it shall not be left to other people, because this is the last empire that's going to be established. Okay, the empire of Israel. Okay, the dynasty of Israel, man, the rightful rulers, man. It won't be need to change rulership, because the sons of God will be perfected, man. Yahweh Shai, the first one to be perfected, and Lord will, we finish our course and are perfected to rule with Yahweh Shai, man. It won't be no need, to change, our rulership, man, because it was always set up for the sons of God to be in power, man. Okay, so let's go here, Genesis 27, and 39, it says, and Isaac his father answered and said unto me, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew from heaven above, and by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. Because we had this devil going back to the dark ages. Then even before then, King David, that era, King Solomon had Esau in submission, then he broke away. After King Solomon, the kingdom split, and the devil, the scripture saying it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So they broke away during this time. During the time of after King Solomon, the devils broke away. And they eventually will come to power as the Greeks, through the sword, through Alexander, and then we subdue these devils again. During the dark ages, really that was pushed out to the side and pushed out of power. But they was moved from power. And Jake had dominion during the dark ages, but then they came back again during the Renaissance, man. You see, and this is that little season in Revelation 20 that we're in now. Okay? And how will he always come back into power, man, through that sword? How will he maintain power? Through the sword. That's why when you go into this word, and by thy sword thou shalt live. Okay? And this is how we begin to understand the nature of Esau, man. Okay? People, throwing it out there, they're going to attack Iran again. Well, yes, this is nigga nature. He don't know how to do nothing but attack. All right? The Hebrew word is karab. All right? Karab. So I meant to get up the word live. It's like this is what I wanted. I swore thou shalt live. Because prophecy say he's gonna do it. Okay, and then the Lord God to what this nigga nature is to attack. And this guy always in attack mode. All right, kaya. Okay, in the word live in the Hebrew, and it says to live, to have life, to remain alive. So in order for this nigga to remain in power, okay, because he said, by thy sword shalt thou live. Okay. So in order for this devil to stay in power, all right, to sustain life, to live prosperously, man. So on both sides of the spectrum, whether he's trying to survive or he's trying to prosper, it's about the sword. Okay, this is how this devil maintains rulership in the earth, man. Okay. You see, it's through this sword. So remain alive, sustain life, or live prosperity, man. Okay, this is how the devil is meant to rule is through that sword, man. And he's very wicked. All right, how he applies his blessing, man. He applies his blessing. The way that he uses his blessing is extremely wicked. He's a goddamn bully. He loves to bully with the sword. Okay, he goes overboard with the sword. They're gonna drop atomic bombs on niggas, man. Just wilding, man. Okay, and then you go here to the book of Psalm, and then we'll segue to the this is the book of Psalm, chapter, I think that's 140. Describe this guy, man. Okay. Yep, this is Psalms 141. It said, deliver me, O Lord, Yahweh Bashim al-Shai, from the evil man. Preserve me from the violent man, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. Okay, which imagine mischiefs in their heart. Continually are they gathered together for war. Okay, continually, man. This is this devil. He's always imagining some type of mischief, some type of wickedness, whether it's through military, whether it's through the food, through, his health system or whatever. It's always through something, some type of psyop, some type of enchantment. You got a thing called AI psychosis, man, showing you that this niggas always have some type of mischief or wicked intent. Continually they at war in some form of fashion, man. Like I say, whether it's psychological war, this nigga at war with people's health, this nigga's at war, all right, with people's finances, through the economy. All right, he has people on the constant squeeze or siege. So this nigga's always continually at war, man, or whether it's directly with the sword. Okay, and he just airstrike you to death, man. Just thousands of airstrikes in a month. Okay, this is E, man. He's the problem. He's the terror of the earth, man. And I want to get this too. Let me get this video. So when you go into this, this is XCIA Larry Johnson. He goes in and he's a heavy critic, of America. Like, of course, we only go so far with these guys, all right, because they're not speaking from a perspective of prophecy, okay, but they have particular inside information, okay, that complements, all right, what we go into in the scriptures. Some things, of course, we gotta spit out, but they a lot of things they say, some things they say have meat to it, okay, but when it comes to, Esau, Edom, he loves to blame and accuse everyone of being him. You see, he loves to accuse and blame everyone to being him. Like, no, nigga, you're you. Okay, people are just reacting to you. You see, the reason why a nation feel like they gotta have a nuclear weapon, nigga, is because of you. You set that precedent. You brought atomic warfare to the game. You did an arms race and got all these nuclear warheads, man. People are responding to you. Okay? So let's play this. You know, he's gonna run down a lot of history, you know, some interesting history, and it explains, you know, a lot what's going on today. That's why every now and then, you know, we'll go back into some history, you know, to get a better understanding of today. You know, it's like, you know, I like to always go back to see, okay, how do we get to this point? You know, and it makes everything going forward make a little more sense. You know, Lord will, you see.
This entire nonsense about, oh, Iran's the number one purveyor of terrorism in the world. Unfortunately, no, it's not. It is us. We've been the ones funding it. We've been the ones enabling it. And people say, well, you hate America. No, I don't hate America. But for God's sake, just open your eyes and look at what's going on.
This idea that we've been at war with Iran for 47 years, you hear, or they've been at war with, boy, it's such a well-kept secret. Even Iran didn't know they were at war with us. Right. What is your response when you hear propagandists and tools of the military-industrial complex say that Iran has been at war with us for 47 years? What is your response to that?
Now, Iran didn't attack Iraq back in 1980. It wasn't Iran that supplied chemical weapons. It was us to them. And Iraq carried out 20 chemical weapon attacks on Iran during the course of that 9-year war that started in 1980, ended in 1988. That I know the guy who hand carried the intelligence to the government of Iraq to be used to launch military plans for attacking Iran. Pat Lang, he's unfortunately deceased now. So the United States, it's the United States who's been funding and supporting a terrorist group called the MEK. MEK was put on the list of U.S. designated foreign terrorist organizations in 1997, even though it had a 25-year track record of carrying out terrorist attacks, including attacks against Americans in Iran. But under Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, they took them off the list. And the CIA, my old outfit, they began working with and providing direct financial support and training to the MEK back in 2004. So we've been the ones carrying out terrorist attacks against Iran. The fact against the United States, and we said, well, look at what they've done with Hezbollah and Hamas. And again, when you look at the number of terrorist attacks against the United States, 90% of them over since 2000 have been carried out by radical Sunni groups that not only have no connection with Iran, but Iran was actually fighting those groups. So that's the other big lie, that Iran's the number one sponsor of terrorism. No, it's not.
And so that's what made it extra crazy when Trump and his first administration killed General Soleimani, because Correct. He was actually on our side fighting against those people who are actually attacking us, right?
Yeah, against ISIS. You know, he was the reason the Iranians were asked to come in to help Bashar al-Assad, because in 2012 Barack Obama thought it was a great idea, and we were working with Turkey, and the Turks wanted to get control of Syria, and so we started supplying weapons to the very Islamic radicals that attacked us on 9/11. You wrap your mind around that.
You see that? You see that? All these things are inside jobs, man, with these, you know, these so-called terror groups, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, you know, such and such. All these different terror groups that, you know, Esau loves to claim that he's fighting. They're all set up, man. Okay? This is how these devils operate, man. They create these terror groups to cause destabilization, all right, to keep these governments destabilized so America come in and do wickedness, man, where they steal resources, okay, where they set up military infrastructure to create these buffer zones, all right, in their region, okay, and, you know, because there's always multiple things that they're doing, okay, to come in and, you know, justify airstrikes, you know, so they can bring in American contractors to get these huge contracts to rebuild in certain areas and so forth and so on, man. It's always a lot of wickedness to what these devils are doing, man. But he just told you that the same people, all right, that they said were responsible for 9/11, America funds and trains these people, man. Okay? Because what happened with 9/11, you had the Patriot Act. That's when they began to really push surveillance on American citizens, man. Okay, then they went and put Iraqi oil back on the market for the with the dollar. You know, because Saddam had took the Iraqi oil off the dollar. Okay, he detached it from the petrodollar. Okay, and American military, all right, the henchmen of the elites went over, okay, and got their oil back on their dollar, man. You know, plus what other wickedness that they do. You see, so this whole thing of American military, you know, just all throughout the world fighting terror, this false war on terror. No one's a bigger terror, all right, to the world than the American military. It's a $1 trillion terrorist group, man. Now you have a lot of people that join, you know, just to, you know, just for a career, just for something to do. You know, some people believe the patriotic madness and they're really protecting, you know, American homeland from terror or whatever. Okay, but ultimately, all right, the biggest terror group is the American military. It's a $1 trillion terror group. Okay, just to sum it up. All right, so let's play some more.
You know, on the one hand, we say, oh, yeah, we're out here to fight this global war on terror. And at the same time, we're training. You know, that's what was going on in Benghazi. Benghazi, they were collecting weapons, including surface-to-air missiles, from what had been in the Libyan government stockpile. They're being cleaned up. The CIA operation in Benghazi was in shipping them to Turkey through Cyprus. And then those were being funneled into these radical leftists that were in these radical extremists, the Sunnis, that were fighting against the government of Bashar al-Assad. And that's when Iran entered to fight against ISIS, for God's sake.
So Iran's fighting against ISIS. Turkey's on the side of ISIS. The United States is on the side of ISIS. Israel's on the side of ISIS. And then what, as predicted on this show in 2018, that if the CIA dirty war in
That's the sound of an American oil company hard at work. Want to be a part of it? Listen up.
Hello, my name is Adam.
Syria is successful, the people who will be running it will be ISIS. And that's exactly what happened. They took there used to be a 15 million CIA, the State Department had a $15 million bounty on Jelani's head. And now he's the head of Syria. He put on a blue Brooks Brothers suit and he takes off his his kafaifa and now he's welcomed at Downing Street. He's welcome. He's welcome at the White House. And Donald Trump says he's a good-looking guy. And
the man who used to be the head of ISIS, because ISIS used to be the biggest problem in the earth. You know, ISIS was just spreading everywhere. They was popping up here. They was popping up there. They was here. They used to have a map. I don't know if y'all remember. Y'all remember that map they used to have on CNN? It show you new territory that ISIS had taken over. You know, we in America like shit. Them niggas getting territory. You know, nigga go do something. You know what I mean? We, you know. You see, simple as hell, man. We looking at the map, we see you go black here, black there. You like, yeah, y'all, America, y'all gotta go do something. You know, you see. I remember that, man. Just the they used to show the map, and ISIS was just taking this over. Like they were the biggest thing. They had to be stopped. Okay, and then what do you have, man? Now the president, the leader of Syria, you know, is ex-ISIS leader, man. Okay? And it shows you that this devil, is involved in, so much wickedness. Okay? It's to the point that what this nigga doing, nothing that he does makes sense, man. It's getting too much to where he's just doing wickedness for the sake of doing wickedness. And nothing that this nigga doing is making much sense, man. Okay, so let's play this.
And that's because he's actually so how can you explain that to me in a way that makes sense, that we are literally in bed with and we still have Guantanamo open, but we're literally welcoming the head of ISIS, the chief head chopper from ISIS, to the White House. And by the way, he's in bed with Israel too. So that just goes to show me that in some ways that ISIS was just like Al Qaeda was invented by the United States, essentially. So was ISIS invented by Israel and the United States. what do you go ahead, respond to anything you want?
Well, this is like the terrorist version of Queer Eye for the straight guy. You know, you take a terrorist, clean him up, put him in a Brooks Brothers suit.
Yes.
He knows cuisine. He's great at reading the wine list now. You know, yeah, he's presentable in public. But look, this goes back to the 1980s when Zbigniew Brzezinski was involved with the effort to get the Soviets involved in Afghanistan, and that's where we began working with the Islamic extremists in 1980s. And then once we got the Soviets sucked in there, because it damaged Soviet society, and that was part of his big national security strategy to weaken Russia. That's where we formed these relationships with these radical Islamic, the Wahhabis, the Deobandis out of Pakistan. And that continued.
And to just show you too that America and Russia, which we know these are, when these nations finally lock up, and began to have direct war with each other, it's over with. It's over. You see, but they've been dancing around each other for decades, going back from the 60s until now. All right, really the 50s. Okay, because of the USSR, they never really agreed with having the American dollar as a world reserve currency. They walked out of the Bretton Woods Agreement and they didn't agree with it. Okay, and that's why you see the USSR has been, which is now Russia, been the black sheep of the economy, of these Edomite economy. Now they juiced in and they have their elites and oligarchs, that play these, global games. Okay. But there's always been a rivalry. There's always been an authentic rivalry, and they play off their rivalry to make Russia a boogeyman for America to push, agendas that have nothing to do with a Russian threat. So they do, all right, propagandize their rivalry, all right, to push agendas that have nothing to do with Russia being a threat to America. Okay, but they've always been rivalries. They've always been poking at each other for decades. Okay, and America really started dealing with those Islamic extremists. Okay, for the sake of having proxies to go against, all right, Russia. All right, Al Qaeda, Bin Laden. Okay, he was funding and giving weapons. Okay, weaponized by the CIA to destabilize certain parts of Russia. And these things work. The USSR called hell. That's why eventually it had to collapse. You had the elites playing the money game with them, and then you had the military using these Islamic extremists, okay, as proxies, okay, against the USSR. Okay, and the main one was Al Qaeda, led by Bin Laden. Okay, just to show you how these devils get down, man. So let's play some more.
After the Soviets left and the Soviet Union collapsed and it became Russia, and starting as early as 1993 was the first Chechen war in Russia, backed by the same Mujahideen that we had been supporting in Afghanistan. Then in 1999 started the second Chechen war. That's what brought Vladimir Putin to power, because the Russian elite said that this guy Yeltsin, he's too drunk all the time. He can't handle this. That was a 11-year war. It ended under Medvedev in 2010. But again, those Islamists that were brought in and working and trying to infiltrate Chechnya, they were from us. We had bought and paid for them. So that's why I say this entire nonsense about, Iran's the number one purveyor of terrorism in the world. Unfortunately, no, it's not. It is us. We've been the ones funding it. We've been the ones enabling it. And people say, well, you hate America. No, I don't hate America. But for God's sake, just open your eyes and look at what's going on.
So how just on a personal note, how does that make you feel as an ex-CIA guy? It turns out that the United States is really the world's and Israel are the world's terrorists. Nobody else is doing anything what we're doing. We have 1,000 military bases around the world. We've created Al Qaeda. We funded. We're in bed with ISIS. We're in bed with the biggest terrorists in the Middle East, which is Israel. We're the ones who are funding them. How does this make, as a person, just take a moment and talk about how that makes you feel about your service to the CIA and about your country?
Yeah, you know, when I entered on duty in 1985, and Valerie Plame was one of my classmates. We did a career trainee program for a year. You know, I was very much involved with the notion that, hey, we're America, Ronald Reagan's city on the hill, a light to the world, a shining light of moral, being moral and ethical, and trying to protect the world from extremism. And it's okay. I bought into that. And I naively accepted a number of things back then, and including when I moved from CIA down to State Department Counterterrorism Office, and we had the invasion, the Iraqi invasion in August of 1990. And boy, at the time, I had no idea then, even though I had had access to classified material, no idea about our role in the previous 11 years with Saddam Hussein. If I had known in 1990 that we had been providing money and chemical weapons and biological weapons and intelligence to Saddam Hussein, I would have looked at that invasion, the so-called invasion of Kuwait, in an entirely different way, and I didn't. It was only later that I began to discover this. And once you get the full facts and start looking back, you realize the American people have been consistently lied to, gaslighted, and propagandized into perceiving people as enemies who are not really our enemies. And that applies to both even Russia and China, because we've got a war machine that feeds off of, and you know, I'm sure you've had some dealings with Hollywood. You know what it is. You go in to make a pitch, they want to know who is the villain. So you always got to have a villain and say, oh, give us a good villain, then we can build a story around it. That's been a U.S. foreign policy.
And so who really runs? So it seems like none of this stuff that they're doing at all never has anything to do with the interests of the American people, the workers. So who is pulling the strings, and who does the CIA actually work for?
Well, unfortunately, I think that the CIA is doing it's not an independent contractor doing what it wants to do. I think that the tie is into the financial interests of the United States, the major financiers, as well as the military. You know, it sounds trite, but it's true. The military-industrial complex, because their interests are not the interests of the American people. Oh, heavens, no. I mean, look, the interests of the American people right now.
And that's what we've been saying. That's the spirit been confirming a lot of these things that we've been saying. Okay? The American people are not in the thoughts when it comes to these wars. Okay? Because look, at these wars, what does the American people benefit? Okay? But spending a bunch of tax money, inflation, price of gas. Okay, what does America benefit? Creating more enemies. Okay, abroad, what does America benefit? But the spirit been saying the American military, all right, is the personal military for the elite bankers. Okay, the oligarchs. All right, these elite families, they run America, man. Okay. It has nothing to do with protecting the borders of America, protecting the homeland, because everything the American military doing is going to get America nuked. Okay? If the American military was partly for the people, they wouldn't do half the things that they're doing, because the path that America is taking is going to get the American homeland nuked, because the American military, all right, acts on behalf of the interests of the American oligarchs, man. Okay? The elite oligarchs that run America. Okay? Because they don't claim to be American. Okay? No, so they do nothing. They answer to the elites. That's who they answer to. Okay? When he said the financial system, talking about the elites. Okay? American military enriches these few oligarch families. That's it. okay, and puts the American taxpayer in debt. You see, when you talk about the American debt, it's not the American system that's in debt, it's the American taxpayer that's in debt. Okay, all that gets pushed to taxpayers, all the debts and bills pushed to the collective poor. Okay, while they profit off these moves that they're making. Okay, these empire games that they play. So let's play this some more.
Now is having lower prices for gas, having prices of foodstuffs coming down, and we got the exact opposite right now because of this war that we launched against Iran. I don't think the majority of Americans don't appreciate that with the shutdown of the Gulf of Hormuz, and then when Saudi Arabia and Qatar in particular got involved with helping attack Iran, and then Iran shut them down. There are 5 key commodities, Jimmy, that drive the world economy. It's not oil, everybody knows about. Liquid natural gas is another one, but urea, sulfur, and helium. 44% of the helium of the world comes out of Qatar. And then when you look at urea and sulfur, you say, well, so who cares about that? Urea and sulfur are critical to the production of fertilizer.
That's right.
I didn't know that. But, once this happened and started looking into I went, oh, my God. So now you're looking at, if you look at plantings in the United States, like with wheat and corn, they're going down. Soybeans going down. Farmers, they don't have the fertilizer to put on the crops. So we're going to get a delayed effect because, right now, okay, the food's in the stores. 6 months from now, we could be looking at a completely different picture, and none of this serves the interests of the American people.
And how did that happen? That the CIA is it because our whole political system doesn't actually work for? So if the CIA, first of all, which I learned during Trump's first term, that they don't answer to the president, right? Because as Chuck Schumer famously said, that Donald Trump, for a very smart guy, is being really dumb to take on the intelligence community, because if you do that, they got 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. And so what the leader of the Democratic Party at that moment revealed was that the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, they don't work for the president. And my question was, well, Rachel Maddow should have followed up with, well, then who do they work for? Of course, she works for the same people who control the intelligence community, so she's not going to say that. She's a war pig. And so is it just because of the way the money works in our election cycles that they control the politicians? So and the politicians obviously don't work for us. When they have a session of Congress,
nobody in government works for the American people. Okay, it's illusion. Okay, the American government is the biggest, illusion of a government on the planet Earth. Okay, all these people work for higher ups. Okay, you got, the president, he's able to fire certain people and, do particular things. But ultimately, when it comes to the agenda of the elites, they let them do particular things that's within the curriculum. Okay, that's within their agenda, long as it don't interfere with the agenda, so they can fire people and put who they want in certain places and, do particular things. Okay, but it's all in the interest of the elites, man. Okay, nobody in government works for the American people. Okay, that's why they don't mind shutting down. They just do a shutdown. They still get paid. Okay, but other, lower tier government workers, they won't get paid. Okay, you see, that's why they do a shutdown. All right. So-called, have a disagreement, and these niggas go home, go take a 2-week recess, come back, argue some more, go back home, and you're getting thousands of dollars behind on bills while these niggas argue, man. Okay, your interest, okay, is not on the table for the American government. All right, data centers rolling out. They don't give a damn how you vote at the town meeting. Data centers still being established, man. Okay, they don't care what it do to the environment. They don't care about your family farm. They've been in the family for centuries. Okay, for decades, for whatever. Okay, 3-4 generation. They don't care about none of that. Okay, it's all about the elite of the agendas. All right, and these corrupt politicians getting the crumbs off the table of the elites, man. You know, they're able to manipulate the market, and you know they're able to do money grabs. You know, on the lower tier. Okay, because Jimmy Dore trying to figure it out. None of them work for you, man. Okay, none of them have your interest. Even these ones that they make the seem like they these, you know, rebellious, you know, rock stars. You know, what's the guy, Robert Kennedy? You know, they thought he was gonna come and be this health guru. Okay, you know, this big health guy. All right, and what did he promote? The wearables, biometrics. Okay, the beast system. Okay, corn, what is it? Corn fructose, stealing everything. Yellow 5, yellow 6 dyes, all this shit, stealing everything. He approved, okay, of the pesticide. I forgot the name of it. The poison that's in the pesticide. All right, he approved it. Okay, the FDA, the USDA, none of them work for you. They don't care. Okay, none of them care. None of these bureaucrats, these non-elected government, all right, agencies, you know, the CDC, nobody cares. Okay, and not even the reception. She don't care. She just there, okay, to get that check, man. All right, and them benefits. You see, so that plays a little more, just a little more. Then we get a couple more precepts.
Not in there doing a bidding of workers or students or the elderly or anybody except the billionaire class that controls them. So it's the same thing with the CIA. They work for the same billionaire class, which is the military industrial complex and the WEF Davos internationalists. Is that what I'm to understand?
Well, I'll say essentially yes, but let's divide the CIA into the operations side and the analytical side. What I don't know right now is whether or not the analytical side is actually giving the president unvarnished truth that he doesn't want to hear. I saw that myself.
Yeah, that's the point with that. You know, so they get a couple precepts. You know, so he got a whole interview on Jimmy Dore, Larry Johnson, pretty good. They got it broken up. You know, so you can go to Jimmy Dore, all right, show on YouTube and watch a couple of those. Pretty good info, but let's get a couple more precepts, man. Okay, because this is an upside down world, you know, and the devil, you know, through his media, all right, his enchantment, okay, his enchantment box. You see, he's able, you know, to confuse people's perception of what's good, what's evil, what's up, down, left, right. That's why you go to Isaiah 5:20 says, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. They put darkness for light and light for darkness. They put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." Okay, so this devil has created, you know, a false reality, you know, where evil is good and good is evil. You know, this devil, he's able, you know, to, you know, push, you know, these narratives that are completely the opposite, man. You know, someone that's defending themselves from, all right, you know, American tyranny. Okay, they're the bad guys. You know, and not to say that these people, you know, these different leaders, all right, that they don't have folly in particular things that they own. But you go into like Libya, you know what Gaddafi was doing, you know, and we don't know, you know, Gaddafi personally, okay, but the villain that they made him to be. But then you go into the reality of how his people were living, you know, that the government of Libya did care about the people, where the people actually got dividend checks, you know, from the oil, okay, the Libyan oil. And Libya wasn't just no super powerhouse oil producer like Saudi Arabia, okay, but the profit they was making, people, the Libyan people benefited from it. Okay, you got, you know, free housing, you know, you got money to go to school, you graduate, you get married, you get money, you have a child, you get money, you get a little package. Okay, it was set up for you to win. Okay, but what did America come and do, man? Did a coup, put in puppet leaders, all right, come and take all the profit, all right, of the Libyan oil and add it to what? The oligarchs, man. Okay, and created a system of poverty for the locals. Okay, and they do that all over the earth, man. Okay, so not saying that none of these guys are just these squeaky clean guys, man, but they nowhere near the villain that Esau pushed them to be. Okay, and then he's been the good guy. He's been the hero. You watch the movie. It's the Edomite male that's coming to save the world. Okay, from these people of color that are terrorists. Okay, that's how this devil operates, man. You see, and on another level, man, he has put Satanism, okay, as a way to transcend, because this whole system is based on Satanism. Okay, but put the ways of the Most High as darkness, as if that's tyranny. Okay, but Satanism is freedom and liberty, man. You know, damn demon, man. You see, well, that's why. All right, Yahweh Shai, is coming to deal with this nigga. Okay, once and for all, man. Hey, Yahweh Shai coming to get this guy out of here, man. Let's go here, because all is leading to, all right, Esau being brought. Since he, is the biggest terror in the earth, well, the Lord's bringing him, the Heavenly Father is bringing him, okay, to the King of terror, his son, because the Spirit, because as Yahweh Shai is coming to wage war and righteousness, well, he's going to be a terror to the wicked, which is Esau, beginning with Esau and these other heathen nations that have followed this, man. Well, let's go here. Let's get to the point, okay? This is Job 18:14 said his confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, man. And the Lord is getting ready and the Lord is breaking this man down. He's breaking his confidence, man. His militaries, is when you go into how his military was just able to dominate with no resistance. Well, now there's a resistance to his military might. Okay, now there's a resistance to his enchantments. Okay, through the prophets, man. Through the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai that's on the prophets, man. Okay, there's a resistance to his enchantments, man. You see? So we have to understand his confidence is being rooted out, man. This is why we see him rushing, and this is why you see him being tacky, man. Okay, the Lord is breaking this nigga down. You see, the fact that Esau is causing ceasefire, that nigga went to war with Iraq for 20 years straight. No ceasefires. Okay, but now this nigga gotta get a ceasefire in 40 days. Like that, this nigga ain't got no. He can't go full court. You see, he can't go full court like he used to, man. He went to, Iraq ran the score up, man. Afghanistan ran the score up, man. Okay, he was just able to sustain, constant war. But now, okay, hey, the Most High prophet got prophecy on this nigga, man. Okay, to where his confidence is being rooted out of his tabernacle, man. And what is going to lead to? It shall bring him to the King of terrors. Okay, so he's being brought to the King of terrors, and it's going to be Yahweh Shai, because the Heavenly Father is sending Yahweh Shai back with anger, with the anger of the Father on this devil, man. I mean, on Yahweh Shai, all right, to get at this devil, man. You see? So yeah, man, we just leave it there. Just wanted to tap into that a little bit. Thought that interview was interesting, but Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you few sisters edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Dash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessing, salutation, hopefully, shalom.